And I would try very, very diligently to remember, hey, things could go wrong. But right now, I'm trying to talk to people and I'm trying to articulate and help and guide and mentor and all those things. So it was all about being as comfortable as you could be in that situation. And the last thing you ever wanted to think about was something bad happening. Well, I was on a flight going from Mazar Sharif up in the north part of Afghanistan, RC, Regional Command North, back to Kabul. And mid-flight, the flight got turned around. And so we, for an inexplicable reason, we turned around and headed back up to Mazar Sharif. And I asked the crew chief what's going on. He said, "I can't talk about it. I don't really know. You'll find out when you land." So I landed and I met up with the public affairs officer up there, German major, who I still know. We're friends. And he and I were talking about it. And apparently what had happened was that Afghan Security Forces colonel had been in a meeting with, I think, 10 to 12 other coalition forces members, in this case mainly U.S. Air Force, and he had just decided in the middle of the meeting to open fire, and he shot 8 of them dead, and then he shot himself. And after that, things got crazy. All of us that were working with the Afghan Security Forces on a regular basis immediately went to not only bring in your weapon, but you had your weapon loaded and you were ready to, at any point necessary, defend yourself and your colleagues. The shock factor, I think, for me was because so much of my job was working with the Afghans that I found myself scared to go to meetings. I found myself going from a position of comfort, and this is this cool thing that we're doing right now, and we're working with the Afghans, to being worried that I'm going to go into a meeting one day and I'm not going to come out alive because at some point somebody's going to have a bad day, or maybe they got ordered to do something, or can I really trust these Afghans that I'm working with, And it was an uncomfortable place. I mean, it was scary.
How did you cope with that? Because you can't have relationships without trust.
You can't. And I would tell myself, you know what, that was just that guy having a bad day, or maybe that guy, I had to go to the place of, I trust these people because I work with them all the time, and I would like to think that they would tell me if something was wrong. And I can't not do my job. My wife would often joke that I would not tell her that I was working outside the base as much as I was, just because I didn't want her to worry about it. And when that happened...
But then you're losing trust in your person.
Yeah, there's a bit of that, right? There's a bit of trying to tell white lies a little bit, and that I didn't want her to worry too much. I didn't want the kids to worry too much. But at the same time, you find yourself in a position of, yeah, I'm a horrible liar, I mean, I'm a public affairs officer, I'm a communicator, I have to tell the truth, it's my mantra. So for me to keep a secret, is that kind of secret is very difficult. So it was hard to equate the two and connect the two dots for me for a long time there. For weeks, I was both scared and excited to go outside the wire, so to speak, and go and visit with my colleagues in the Afghan Security Forces. But at the same time, I knew that it was important for me to go. And at the end of the day, I wanted to believe that the camaraderie that I shared with my coalition colleagues, I also shared with the Afghan Security Forces that I was with. And at the end of the day, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen. I was just going to have to not worry about it. Which is, ironically enough, what I felt when I was in Iraq the year prior to that. And I would go out on patrols on a regular basis and armored vehicles, and you were always worried about the specter of an IED attack. And you didn't know when or where those were going to occur. So you couldn't go out on the road every day and be worried that you were going to die. You just had to go out on the road and do it with the idea that, well, if it was your time, it was your time. So that incident was bad. And I eventually kind of overcame that hurdle. Things kind of calmed down a bit, and people were a little less worried about it. But the second one was in my last 2 weeks of my year-long deployment. And at that point, you really just want to be as safe as possible. You don't want to do anything that would possibly be dangerous because you just want to go home on the freedom bird, they would call it, right? You would want to get on the victory flight back. And anyway, I was out on a trip downtown. I had my replacement, the called them AFPAC hands. It was somebody who would be trained in Dari and Pashto, and it was a public affairs person who was going to kind of take over where I'd left off. And so I was duty bound to take him downtown to go visit with Ministry of Defense and all the people that I knew, so they could connect. And so we were on the way back. Kabul was always kind of crazy in traffic. There was this roundabout there, Masood Circle, that was just insane. People would get to that and go both directions. It was nuts. I was not driving. I had a young NCO that was driving, public affairs, Air Force. That was our driver. My counterpart was in the back. We had a 2-vehicle convoy. We were in basically armored Toyota Land Cruisers, which was our vehicle that we rode around in. And we were driving down the main road, and in front of us we could see looked like an old woman in the sort of blue burqa. Couldn't see her face, couldn't see anything. She was heavily veiled. And she was kind of ambling across the road. So turned to my NCO, he hit the brakes, so we would let her cross. She stopped briefly, and we thought she was just going to stay there. So he hit the gas, and as he hit the gas, she started walking again, and we hit her. And she rolled up under the vehicle on the front left side. NCO's panicking, he's freaking out. The crowd started to kind of close in on us and descend. People were yelling, throwing things. It was getting bad. My AFPAC hand in the back seat was asking if he could get out of the vehicle, since he spoke Dari and Pashto, and he was going to try to argue with people and just let them know that we were going to